my podcast, Bilingual Minds. Today, I have a guest speaker. Her name is Gemma. Hi, Gemma. How are you doing?
Hi, Isa. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So my name is Gemma. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I am a Reno native, so I was born and raised here in Reno. And since I was in third grade, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So I came here to UNR and I got my teaching degree. And I was a teacher for about 10 years. I taught an elementary, so from preschool up until fifth grade. And after 10 years of teaching, I wanted to kind of still stay within the education field. I really enjoy working with families and children. So I applied for a supervisor position for Early Head Start, and I am currently, and that's my current position right now as a supervisor for Early Head Start. And I work with teachers. I supervise teachers who work with assistant educators and work with young children and providing support for families and the lower income kind of area. So yeah.
Thank you, Gemma, for coming. So in this episode, we're going to explore the incredible science of language and cognition. We will be looking at the cognitive development of young bilingual children who are exposed to two languages in early childhood. We will be looking at how bilingualism shapes children's mind from executive function to metalinguistic awareness and beyond. So I will be using the empirical article, The Cognitive Development of Young Dual Language Learners. It's a critical review conducted between 2000 and 2013 by Barak, Balistock, Castro, and Sanchez. And just to remind you guys, I'm not an expert in this topic. We're going to be giving our opinions, discussing our experiences. So please come to this podcast with an open mind. We are here to learn and share. And yeah, let's dive in. All right, so we're going to start by talking about bilingual experience from this article. So bilingualism is widespread throughout the world. This review shows that growing up bilingual isn't just a linguistic phenomenon, it's also a cognitive one, with profound implications for how children think and process the world. The researchers look at 102 students that focused on preschool children. They identify both the strengths and challenges of bilingualism. So, some of the key findings in cognitive development was executive function, which children who speak more than one language often excel at tasks that require both inhibitory control, which is how to deal with distractions, and cognitive flexibility, the switching of tasks or roles. And I didn't tell you guys, but Gemma speaks Spanish too.
Yes.
So how do you think to dealing with distractions in your personal experiences? You think it is like true that it's a benefit, or you think like, oh no, like the same?
No, I do think it's beneficial, kind of like you said with executive functioning. My first language was Spanish. I grew, my parents only spoke Spanish to me growing up, but when I started school, I was exposed to English, and I think my ability to go back and forth between Spanish and English, I think does help. It has like the article states, there's like a benefits for that.
Yeah.
When it comes to distractions,
Yeah.
I think it does because your brain is constantly like trying to switch from one language to the other. So I think in that perspective, like it does, there is a benefit to that.
Yeah, I think because I feel like your mind is more like active, you know, you're like thinking in both languages, so I think that too. So, however, the results for working memory, which involves the reiteration and manipulation of information, have a mix. Also, these attribute to their greater capacity for inhibition and to their greater sociolinguistic awareness, which sociolinguistic awareness is people that have different ways of expressing. So bilingual people have like better understanding or more empathy for others. So, for example, the studies have shown that bilingual children are better at switching between different roles than their monolingual peers, using tasks such as the dimensional change car solve. Do you know what is the dimensional change car solve? The exercise, the game? It's a game.
Oh, it's like memory?
Mm-hmm.
No. Or
No.
sorting?
Yes.
I'm not too familiar with it.
I wasn't either. But it's like this experiment with children that, for example, there is a blue boat and a red rabbit, and they have like this person that is doing the experiment has a red rabbit and a blue boat, and he's like, okay, can you where the blue boat goes? And then the child put it in the blue boat, and then he categorized. But then he puts like he has like different colors of the boat and the rabbit, and he's like, don't matter about the color, just the shape. So he has a red boat. So he's like, where is the red boat goes? And the child puts the red boat in the blue boat. So this is how like monolingual have like a struggle with this cognitive structure, while bilinguals is like easy for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they can like identify like faster.
Yes.
Oh, it's a boat, but it doesn't matter the color. So
Yeah.
in this one, or it's red, but it doesn't matter the shape. So with the red,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I think, yeah, so it kind of goes back to maybe those skills that that children who are bilingual, again, help them or benefit them from knowing that a second language, just being able to kind of be fast at those skills.
Yeah, exactly. So bilingual children show a higher awareness of the structure of language, which helps them to identify grammatical errors and to understand how words get formed. I personally didn't think that bilingual children can do this. Do you think that or not?
That they can do.
That they can have a higher awareness of the structure of the language.
I think I do think so. I taught second grade, and I taught in Spanish, and most of my children in my classroom were monolinguals. They were learning Spanish.
Okay.
And what I did notice is those children who were, bilingual, who had both their writing. I don't know if, like the skills that they need when they're learning how to write and read, like they were transferring to the, like if they were, let's say, primarily Spanish and they were writing in English, those skills that they learn do transfer. And it kind of shows in their writing. Maybe it's, those basic foundational skills that they're learning when they're little, like in preschool or kindergarten. those basic, writing, reading, those skills do, when they establish them when they're young and they're strong, it does transfer into learning the second language easier, is what I noticed. So I think it is interesting, and I think it is very true, because I saw it in my children when I was teaching them in second grade how to read and write in Spanish for children who were monolinguals, but also children who were bilingual.
Wow,
Yes.
and I think it's like very interesting interaction. I mean, you as a teacher, like having two different cultures, like in the same group.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for sharing, Gemma. So when children have a higher level of proficiency in both language, the benefits are particularly evident, as you were saying,
Yes.
with your children. So for brain development, early functional changes in the brain are induced by bilingualism. Infants with exposure to two languages have a distinct neural patterns in comparison to monolingual peers. Even short-term exposure to a second language can reshape brain responses. Wow. I think it's crazy to think how the brain can change just to an exposure of another language.
Yes.
Like from babies, like from such an early age.
Yeah. From what I know, when they're babies, like their brains are making these connections. They're making I don't know what it is in their brains, but they're making these like the synapses or whatever. I don't know too much about it, but any kind of exposure, and I think the article said even if it's a little bit short term, like their kids are taking, those babies are taking all of that in, and it's big. It forms their brain. Like I think that is so cool.
Yes.
And cool how the brain works, and when they're little, that's why it's so important to for children to be hearing language. It doesn't matter if it's two languages or one, but the more that they hear it, the more it will benefit them in the long run.
Yes, because even like working with children from 2 to 3 years, when they already have like that home language, and then they are learning English, like they learning like super fast.
Yes.
Like simple words like they already know.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my goodness, because I have families where they are like, oh my gosh, like I don't know, my child, she only speaks Spanish. I don't know if she's doing good. Like how is she interacting with English? I'm like, no, like children learn really fast the other language. That she's learning super fast. She's doing great. Like children have like this ability to just like learn another language. So the theory of mind, bilingual children are better than monolinguals at understanding the beliefs and mental stage of others. I think this is like what we were saying like about empathy, like how bilingual children have just a better understanding or more empathy for others than monolingual children. I think it's because they come from different cultures. And also I think it has to do with parents that talk about it with their children.
Yes.
Since an early age.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and what I think is because some children may struggle with understanding first learning a second language, they know how hard it is.
Yeah.
So it's like they develop that empathy because they are kind of struggling at first to understand a whole new language that they're not familiar with. So you're going to be a little, kind of like you kind of step back a little bit and maybe don't feel so comfortable, and it makes you feel a little bit more understanding.
Yeah, I think that's what you say, like they have the experience of the struggle. So in base of that experience, they have that understanding.
Yes.
Great. And then is linked to their enhanced executive control. So this allows them to better manage conflicting perspectives. Which, yeah, we come back to the same thing, what we were saying. Like, they have a better understanding, they have more empathy, problem solving. So, yeah, we totally agree with that. And then challenges and context. Bilingualism offers cognitive benefits. However, the extent of these benefits depends on several factors. Language proficiency. Children with a balanced knowledge of both languages tend to benefit the most. Socioeconomic status often interacts with language exposure and influences outcomes, which I think socioeconomic status is really important as a resource because, well, for example, in Mexico, like you have to have money in order to have a better education and to learn English. Like you have to pay for it, you know?
Yeah.
And for example, here in Early Head Start, they are like learning both for
Yes.
free.
Yeah, they are. It's and like a access thing. You know, if you have access to, better quality education materials, it makes it easier to learn the dominant language, and with our kids in early Head Start, we have a variety of children, diverse families, and it can affect, if children have access to quality care, then they do, their language does improve developmentally. So I do think that the socioeconomic status does affect children's ability to improve in their language developmentally.
Yes, because also like having good socioeconomic status, it can be beneficial for children in the areas of health, like food, like clothes, like mental health. So I think socioeconomic status plays a huge role in learning and interacting with other language. So we're moving on to the implications for education and for future research. There are real-world implications to understanding how bilingualism affects cognitive development. To maximize benefits, educational programs should emphasize the promotion of both languages. Just like we were saying, like in Early Head Start, you have like the opportunity to interact two languages or even more. And then future research should standardize measures of bilingualism, look at different language pairs, and use longitudinal studies to track the effects over the long term. All right. So now we're gonna go into Gemma. I'm gonna ask her some questions. Are you ready, Gemma?
Yes, I'm ready.
So the first question is, how does the level of proficiency in the child's first language affect their ability to acquire English as a second language?
So, kind of going back to my experience, so what I've noticed when I was teaching pre-K was children who came in with a strong home language, and again, if it's Spanish, English, whatever language, if they have a strong home language, they acquire the second language more easily and faster because they are exposed to their home language. But when I talk about like strong, I talk about like There has to be a lot of reading, a lot of talking, songs. Like, that's what I mean when it has to be a home language that's strong. Like, it's not just a lot. The children need to be, it's not just a lot of input, it's a lot of output too.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I've noticed that with children is if they have a strong home language, whether it's English or Spanish, or any language, the second language always comes easier.
Yes, and I think I don't know if there is more articles about this topic. If there is any, let me know. But I think it's very interesting how like how the brain does that. You know what I mean? Like how you already have a language, like why it is easy to gain another language. And I don't know, I think it will be very interesting to see like detail, like how that works, like that process in the brain.
Yes.
But yeah, I think, but also like this is in children, but like I don't know about adults. I mean, it will be easy, no, because in adults it's not easier to get another language.
I think it's harder.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
hard.
when I imagine it's harder. When when it's children, they're young, their brains are still forming, so it's easy for them to grasp those skills when they're little. When it's as an adult, I think it is harder. Yeah.
Because also, like, I learned English when I came to the US in 2019 for college. So it was hard, but easy at the same time because I didn't have option. I have to talk English like I was in college. But I don't know if this is true. I'm just saying this. But I think because children, they don't have like any other thoughts. They're just like growing. They're developing. So I get like it comes like easier in their mind. But us, our adults, I have like, what if people is gonna judge me? Like I'm not smart. Like this is so difficult. Like all of these thoughts are like in my mind. So I don't know if that has anything to do with getting another language.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I completely agree with what you're saying because as an adult, you're thinking more about other being judged for not being able to speak English very well, which is, it's sad and it's hard because a lot of people who are learning a second language, when you're an adult, you don't practice it because of that. You're afraid. People are going to laugh at you. But then at the same time, you are forced to, you were forced to, you had to because you knew, with going to school and working. And some people adults who, they also are forced, but they just don't practice it because they're just afraid to get judged. But when you're little, you're learning, and I think all the children are learning. It doesn't matter if they're learning a second language, they're all learning how to speak. Language is just a general thing. So they're exploring, they're experimenting, so they're not afraid. They're more like, they're more curious, I would say.
Exactly,
they're more curious to learn, and that's why I think it makes it easier for them.
Yes, and also having noticed in the classroom where children they are learning English, they will repeat the words. And it's like how they, like unconsciously, like they repeat the words.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow.
They're not really thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. But they do it. Like, for example, I say, oh, it's water. And they, oh, water, water. I'm like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're teaching us.
Yeah, exactly. They're teaching us.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, how can early childhood educators create an inclusive environment that supports both the home language and English in the classroom?
So, as an early childhood educator, what I did was have a lot of bilingual books, and not just books that were bilingual, but like that represented different cultures. I labeled a lot of things in my classroom, both languages. Well, Spanish tends to be, also a very known language. So I did a lot of Spanish and like labels, pictures, songs. We did a lot of songs in the classrooms. And also, even if there was a family who maybe didn't speak Spanish but spoke a different language, I always made an attempt to learn some languages or some words in their language, and also using that with the children, because I want them to know that I respect their language. I want to know their language, and it's just as important.
Yes, and also like to feel the families like
Inclusive, right?
And that it is a safe space
Yes.
because they're leaving their children here. So we need to make sure the families feel safe, inclusive,
Valued
and
and important.
Yeah, important.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, what are some effective strategies for introducing English to young children who are non-native speakers? Well, it's kind of like going to the same
Kind of,
question.
Yes,
Yeah,
and a lot of visuals too.
Oh, yeah, the visuals,
So I
yeah.
also taught EL for 2 years, and I worked with newcomers. So I worked with children who were just new and did not know. Oh, and they would come, not when they were little, but like second grade, third grade. And I loved working with newcomers. They, again, they come with a different perspective, and they struggle, but I did a lot of visuals. They need a lot of visuals to be able to see the pictures. And when teaching, along with the visuals, for us to be able to teach, we did gestures too. So like sign language, like gestures to go with the visuals. That was a big help for them.
Yeah.
And then, as a teacher, you learn strategies that you have to implement in the curriculum to help with them learning not just English, but also like academic content. So
okay.
yeah, we did. It was a lot of GLAD strategies, which is guided language acquisition development strategies. So yeah, there's a lot that teachers can do in the classroom to help children develop those the English skills.
Yes, yeah. Okay, and then the last question is, how do non-English speakers children experience language learning in the classroom, and what emotional challenges may they face?
So the emotional challenges, like that, it's hard. I can tell when I see young children, especially new to the country, not being able to understand. They're not really focused on learning. At first, they are focused on just fitting in, just adapting.
Yes.
So when they first get, to United States or wherever, from my experience, like they're just struggling to fit in, to know, they have a new culture, a new place where they're living, so they struggle. I do remember one child who would hide in the bathroom. He did not want to be in the classroom.
Yeah.
He wanted to go back home. His home was Mexico, and things were different. The food was different, and I couldn't focus on teaching because that's not where his mind was. His mind was in just trying to like survive. And it does take some time. It takes about, when children move schools too, or move, like it takes about 3 months before they start learning. Those first 3 months is all like just trying to survive for them. So it's hard. And them just listening and they not understand, like you're talking to me in a different language and I don't understand what you're saying. So it is it's hard for them. They struggle. And I think that's where a lot of the empathy comes from. Like they learn how to empathize with people because they know what it is to struggle.
Yeah, that's the struggle, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, like, even for me, it was hard. I cannot imagine, like, for children. Like, they just hide because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to interact with others or, like, how to make connections. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Please have empathy for children and others. Okay, would you mind to talk about the pyramid model? Just like how is it? What is this model? How it works? Just like explain it a little bit.
Yeah, so the pyramid model, I'm familiar with it. When I first started teaching, we called it taxi, but now it's called the pyramid model. So it's a framework that teachers use to really focus on social emotional development with evidence-based practices.
Okay.
So in the classroom, the teachers take strategies and really gear them towards helping children, develop those social emotional skills that are very important. And it's not a separate type of curriculum. It's embedded within the curriculum. So it's not supposed to be something different. There's strategies that you use throughout the day, throughout your curriculum. And I can give you an example. We have solution cards, and they're both in English and Spanish, which I really love. And the teachers, take one strategy, for example, trade, and on the pictures, these strategy cards, there's a picture, of a trade, two children trading, and the teachers model it for them. They talk to the children about it, and with the storybook, and then eventually the whole kind of process is that the children will use these strategies when they encounter a problem. So we're trying to help them problem solve with these strategies as a way for them to kind of also self-regulate when their emotions, when they're let's say they're fighting over a toy or two kids. So, you bring in the strategy, help them, guide the children how to use the strategy to trade, and then kind of reinforce that behavior by saying, good job trading, so that is one example, is just really focusing on those skills that are so important for young children to learn.
Yeah. And how, what is the ages for this model? Or it doesn't matter, how old are the children?
I don't know that there's a specific age. We start them even as babies with early Head Start.
Yeah.
Even though they're babies and you think, oh, well, they're too little, even that exposure, kind of we talked about, is good for them to hear it.
Yes.
Of course, they're not going to be able to use it, but when you start with that exposure at a young age and it just continues, it's consistent, it's familiar for them. So when they get older, they're going to be able to use it because they're like, oh, I remember. So, yeah.
Kind of like muscle memory.
Yes.
They bring it back.
Yes, they do.
Oh, I learned this.
Yes.
Please stop.
yes. They're going to remember. And again, those gestures, so...
Yeah, because I have seen some of the children using it, and they're because I sometimes forget about it, and they're like, please stop.
Yes.
Please stop. I'm like,
you got it.
Yes. Yeah, oh my goodness, it works.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah, it takes time.
The social emotional, there is a big part of the development, and I don't think there's a huge focus on it. And one thing I learned as a teacher, the first thing that I learned as a pre-K teacher was you need to have social emotional strong before you can have academics. It's really hard to learn if you don't have those skills to be able to self-regulate your emotions, to problem solve. So I truly believe to start teaching them young, very young, and you get better as an adult, because even as an adult, we still have problems.
Yeah, we still struggle.
We still struggle. So, it's if we are taught young how to control our emotions, how to identify, it's gonna get easier. So the younger we start, the better.
Yes, and also with this pyramid model, it teach children how to put limits with others, for example, like, please don't hit me, or like, that hurts. So I think that is really important, because then when they're like teenagers in middle school, high school, they have those limits with other children, which, like, for example, in my personal experience, my parents like never teach me that. So until now, I'm start like to put limits, you know? So I think it is really important that children from an early age know how to put limits
Yes.
on themselves.
How to vocalize
Yeah.
those boundaries.
Yeah, the
Yes.
boundaries, yeah. Because also, like, it can save some traumas too,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, and it kind of goes back to the social part, you know, being able to say you don't like something, please stop.
Yeah.
I don't like that. That was one thing that, you know, was a big focus. And when I taught pre-K, it's like, okay, you don't like something, you tell them, say, please stop. I don't like that. And I did have a lot of children, and they learned that quick. And again, it's very repetitive, the pyramid model, but it's good because that's what helps them learn.
Yes. All right. So anything else that you wanted to share?
I think the article was very interesting. Just being bilingual is, I think, a great thing to, you know, to really emphasize. And yeah, I mean, I have experience, you have experience being bilingual, and I think it's so important that, you know, especially if you're, you have a second language, to be able to continue to share like the benefits of speaking a second language, and continue that. I think sometimes also like it gets kind of like left behind through generations. But yeah, I think it's a good thing, and I'm happy that my parents were able to continue to speak to me in my home language, because now, you know, I can help other people.
Yes.
You know, so there's that benefit as an adult, is like I can jump in and help someone who may not have the English language.
Yeah, because in other article, it says like some Spanish speakers will say that learning another language is a gift. And I think it really is, because like, look at you now, that you have a good job, you are, you can help families, help children, teachers, like create like all this community.
Yes.
You know?
And I love it. I love helping people, and that's where I want to take, you know, the knowledge that I have. I want to be able to help others who may not have the knowledge, and, you know, like through, you know, translating or any way that I can help.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to close this article by bilingualism is more than just learning two languages. It rewires the brain, enhances cognitive flexibility, and deepens our understanding for communication. So yeah, I think from this article, what it surprised me is like how like the brain gets shaped by learning another language. I think this is something that I didn't know, and so now I can share with someone else. But yeah, well, thank you, Gemma, for coming and sharing.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. And see you until the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.